Okay.
So this is the entrance point. So it goes basically west to north to east to south. So if you've ever been up here, the flow is like a clockwise circle.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see like all the little components and things.
Not all, but I could see most of it.
All right.
Very shiny.
Yeah. That's the personality type. I can't help myself. All right. So my name is.
Not gonna hide that light up under a bush, right?
Absolutely. Okay. So my name is Deshelle, and I was first introduced to the Inner Source Wellness Center sometime in March. And the reason was because I had experienced a traumatic event. My godmother brought me here for a place of rejuvenation, a place of peace, a place to learn and grow. She also knew that I had a background in landscaping that I had stopped. Once this event happened, I didn't want to do anything anymore. So the presentation is really about an individual journey on the property. As it relates to permaculture, as it relates to spirituality, as it relates to pollinators and habitat, and really trying to incorporate different case studies like CJ, Dre's son, who might like a sensory garden, or Rob, who might need labels on the property just to identify certain plants, or someone like Carrie, who also likes meditating in outdoor environments. So there's like water garden, there's the greenhouse, but again, as I said, it goes in like a clockwise flow. So when I first entered the property, I entered down here at the parking lot, and my first observation was it was signage. It was like for the amount of energy that you get coming onto the property, I wanted there to be like a welcome pollinator garden, colorful area that's also seated by a crystal. And the crystal part it really is to represent the different levels of being. So we're human, there's plant beings, there's spirit beings, there are ancestors, but there are also star people. And I see a lot of sacred geometry here. So again, I wanted to incorporate every single aspect of this, which is why this whole thing is so overwhelming, and I had so many notes. But as a landscaper, my eye caught a lot of pruning, a lot of cleaning, a lot of weeding, a lot of things that I needed to do internally to also cut trauma. So when you come up the pathway, there's a hugelkultur bed. My mom donated seeds to that bed, and it was like a Siberian watermelon. What it had was great elements: corn, peppers, tomatoes, sunflowers, but it didn't have the structure to hold the vines of the watermelon vine. So I wanted to add like some structural support for the hugel bed and allow it to have space to grow, so that the critters wouldn't get to it before the humans did, because it's people share. Not necessarily that I don't want to feed the animals, but as Saturdays happen when this is Community Volunteer Day, she usually puts fruits and vegetables out for people to take, but sometimes the animals get to it first. So I noticed that. I also, in terms of adding plant life, I put Monarda up here, which is also bee balm, and I also put a low-lying ground cover, which is creeping thyme. Both pollinator attractors, the creeping thyme you can step on. So a lot of us walk barefoot on the property. Once you step on it, it releases the creeping thyme aroma. It's very florally, it's really fragrant, but it also has color too. And the Monarda is a pollinator. It attracts butterflies, bees, hummingbirds. And I've seen a hummingbird moth, or it's the strangest little insect, but it's a moth, but it looks like a hummingbird. So they attract those too, and those are very specific to certain types of pollinating plants like Crocosmia, which I'll talk about later. So going further up the driveway, I noticed the tree canopy. I didn't put any trees here because just being on this property a lot, I know there's a tree canopy up there with pines and maples. I noticed the lower branches were all practically decaying, and I thought safety hazard for someone who's younger or older or whomever, because this center, as an academic center, will attract different age groups. You might want to cut some of those branches and remove them to be used sustainably as log for the fire, for fire pits, and for inoculating the mushroom. But that's all going up to the water garden area. And that was actually my first introduction to a hugelkultur bed. So that was something I learned, not ever having heard that before on the property. So we can continue all the way up to the back water garden area. I'm sorry, I'm blocking you.
No, you're fine.
There's a shed and there are tools, and then there are like a few different, multiple different ponds in the northwest corner. It's shaded. My experience here was the day we arrived, I was kind of like able to just walk about by myself, and Dr. Brown didn't really have any like direct communication talking with me. The only thing she said was, let me know what you feel when you're back there. That's all she said. As a sensitive person, I connect myself to plants, I connect myself with people, I do connect with star beings and ancestors, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to encounter? There were multiple things that happened in this space alone. The first thing that happened was I sat quietly in an area that I thought, oh, I can hear the birds, and I can hear crickets, and I can hear certain things, but this day in particular, I didn't hear anything. I heard probably one bird, which I thought was odd and ironic because this place is teeming with life. It's teeming with pollinators. There are all kinds of songbirds here, cardinals, blue jays, finches. You can hear everything back here, but this day in particular, I didn't hear anything. And when we take the walk, I'll point out the area where it was. They had set up a vortex. This is why I didn't hear anything. When you walk all the way back to the double pond, there's a pond that had, to me, an Aquarian picture. So ironically enough, I'm an Aquarius, so I sat in that spot. The amount of energy that flowed through me, the grounding, the clearing, and the cleansing from, again, the trauma was like something that I, again, hadn't experienced for a long time. I was in Sedona. It was something similar, but it was open. It was not the same. This energy here was pure. I felt like I was guided there. But I also noticed in this whole area where debris needs to be cleaned, the paths needed to be a little bit more defined. And as a landscaper, the first thing I do coming into a property is I clear it. So I clear debris, I prune things, I deadhead, I go through and just check the health of the plants. I go through and check like poison ivy so people don't get, itchy. But, again, this was a multi-functioning space for me because there were so many things that were going on here. The other thing that happened here was an idea that I had and I brought to Movina was I wanted to bring a friend down in terms of this being a healing center. A friend of mine was moving to Houston. And I said, oh, we should do like a workshop. We should do a spiritual workshop. Me, have never done a spiritual workshop before ever in life. Wanted to just do this. Y'all know I cook. So I wanted to bring her to this area, to this space, and just kind of feel what I felt. We were back there talking about it, and this little frog kind of jumped back into the pond, and I said, oh, we'll call it Leap of Faith. Leap of Faith. It was, because this center has so many different workshops it offers, I wanted to offer like day retreats where you come in, and depending on what it is you're going through, your journey, we create, well, here, let me just read from this, because this was for an actual person. The location was here. The intention was go, grow, glow, and flow. And the time by the pond, the nature walk would probably be like a 45-minute thing, but in terms of the spirituality of taking the leap of faith, You do cleansing, you do smudging, you do a guided permaculture nature talk, sistership of spirit, another talk, and readings. So the reason why I was wanting to do something like this was because this space commands connectivity and communication, and again, spiritual growth. It also allows you to connect with plant life. So the person that I intended to invite down here, she didn't have that kind of background, and she always asked me to, whenever you go on these things, can you bring me? She didn't make it, but the concept of having 1 day, 2 day, 3 day workshops, overnight, extended stay, whatever, this space allows you to do that on any side of this property. So you could do it back here, you can do it in this area along the southeastern side, which we'll go over and we'll see this little area I set over there. But again, from a landscaping and permaculture perspective, for me, the paths needed to be clear, which is symbolic in a lot of ways. You can reuse the cuttings or the droppings, or you just put it back in the compost area, which is back here. I also wanted to add lighting, and since a lot of us had incorporated lighting in the design, these little crystal lights are very low light solar pods, which you set them in the sun, and then once they collect the energy, you place them wherever you want, and then when the energy is depleted, the light goes out. So there's no turning it off. You don't have to worry about batteries or nothing like that. They just go out on their own, and you just take them back out and charge them in the sun. So it's not electric. You don't have to worry about, like I said, having an electric source, batteries. It's just natural and sustainable. What else is back here? Pollinators. I forgot, when you come in first, and there's that fence, you can use, there's this area that I had claimed as my project. That's the pollinator garden. This is the area when I first came here, I started pruning, I started clearing, I started moving things around. There were plant life underneath there that hadn't seen the light. So once I cleared everything, they started coming up. So I think in terms of design, a very important component is clearing the space and weeding. Some very simple controls. In this one space alone, just doing that opened the opportunity for other plant life to grow. So there are some things that I added in this area. Of course, I added lavender. Lavender is also very therapeutic and calming. It helps with anxiety. It helps digestion if you ingest it. But in terms of healing trauma and calming, if you have anxiety, depression, nervousness, blah blah blah, those are medicinal. That's a medicinal herb that you can use for that, whether it's to tea or tincture or sprays. But there's also rosemary and thyme. The purpose primarily for this pollinator garden with added crocosmia and anemone was because it reminded me of the garden that I had before I even had the traumatic event, and I wanted to bring that back no matter where I am. So I had asked if it was okay to redesign this, and was given permission to add plants and do things relative to bringing more pollinators, because I noticed another part of we'll go on a walk. There were mites and powdery mildew and lanternflies and like all kinds of different pesty bugs that we can, if we added more pollinator plants in different pockets along the property and in different areas, these praying mantis, ladybugs, butterflies, they will eat, these are beneficial bugs, they'll eat the pests. You don't have to worry about using any kind of chemical control. But like neem oil, there's another natural spray that you can use. Is made with garlic and like I believe cayenne pepper or something like that. But idealistically, you want to use natural things in an environment like this because everybody's eating from this. It's a community garden. It's a space where we're picking and just eating as we go along. So I just wanted to redesign that a little bit and clear it out, add a bird bath, add some more plant materials. But along it already was the Japanese fringe tree, the fig tree, the peach tree, and the Bing cherry tree. Oh, this guy, this is Seal. When I first started landscaping, again, there are a lot of things that I'm like connected me to the space. I love sea oats, and this just how they're designed. It kind of reminded me of like sacred geometry, but they are along the beachways. They're endangered. So the fact that she has these here made me think, instead of taking them out, just maybe again prune, divide, and just give them some more space to grow, because they are they're very special grass to have on any property because they are endangered in other locations. So let's go back up here. Cardinals, finches, bees. What else we have? The praying mantis. Y'all saw in our class that I found the dead shedding of a praying mantis. Well, all that goes back into the cycles of life and repurposing things back to the earth, back to composting, and being able to sustain the property without having to introduce like other kinds of soils for building. So that's the far back corner. I didn't have anything really that I wanted to adjust or add to the greenhouse. I really just thought it would be a great space to just do outdoor classes and outdoor workshops. There's natural seating, and when we had our demonstration here, it made me think like there could be other demonstrations that go on here if that this space definitely commands just more seating, and you can sit on the ground or whatever. But I'm buggy. I'm the buggiest landscaper I know, but I still feel the importance of having the space, if you have the space, to use it and to maximize it. So this area to the back fence by the equestrian field, that's the compost area. So all the clippings, all the cuttings, all the leaf blowing, all that stuff, you can just repurpose it into the flower beds, or you could repurpose it into the composting bins. And there were multiple bins around the property. Again, the crystals were all seeded because that day that I was here, I was walking in this area. You were talking about moon gardens. Mm-hmm. Back here along the fence is like is that called a moon key? Right. I held it in my hand I asked for permission before I touched it, and I held it in my hand. I got my card, and I didn't have a name for it, and I named things. And connecting with the land here and the spirits here, I held that key in my hand and asked, I would like to know the name of my card. If there's any guidance, let me know. Thank you. And I put it back on the fence, and I walked away. When I came like halfway down this path, which is why the chakra system was here, Luna came to me, and that's the name of my card. Luna, the moon, it's a white card. So I put white crystals here because the energy on this property to me is very pure. And it's grounding, it's healing, it's soothing. And I didn't just want to focus on the tangible stuff. There's very intangible spiritual stuff that's going on here. Everything that we've talked about has all been connected. Thank you. And this is really just based on my experience being on this property for this period of time and just absorbing all the energies here. So coming back down this I'll call it the chakra path. It really is like a path of cleansing. Because once I came out, I felt better. Like I felt like I could breathe better. I felt clear. And so I decided maybe that's where there could be a walking meditation or a sitting area where you design out the different, the 7 different chakras, and for each station you sit. So that's an area that I want to walk us through when we leave out of here. I still put lights along the path because as it was mentioned before, it could be a little dark, and some people like to meditate in the dark. So having those relocatable or replaceable solar lights, you can just put them as people need the space. You can just put them out, and then collect them back at the end of the night or whatever, so that the nocturnal creatures aren't really being disturbed at all. But you'll see when we walk down this path, there's a control path here, a lot of mosquitoes. So you'll need to have insect repellent, but adding plant life to this, there's citronella plant that you could add here that would repel mosquitoes, and a plethora of other plants that could be used. But it's naturally shaded, it's really dense, so that's where mosquitoes like to be. Some people like to just spray around their orchid field. It doesn't matter, but if you're going to spend a lot of time in this area, you're going to need long sleeves or some kind of insect repellent control in this area. When you go around this grove, because it's so shaded and densely populated, again, another component that is kind of like a repetitive thing for me, clearing out thinning, because a lot of plants, when they're touching each other, when they're rubbing up on each other, and there's moisture, there's no circulation, there's not enough sunlight through to allow a natural habitat, it breeds an environment for fungus, for molds, for bugs and insects that aren't so beneficial. So by the time you get to the raspberries that are over there, the bugs have already consumed them, they're on them. We don't want to eat them because they have like a bunch of different, I can't do that. But if the space is for education and learning, these were, to me, teachable opportunities to introduce controls, to help collect the different vegetables and fruits and things that we use here, so that the bugs and the critters and the animals don't get to them before we do. I also put like little light, like full sun, shade. It's kind of sunny back here, so it's like partly sunny, kind of shady, but all this back in here is densely populated. That's more shaded than anything. And coming back down around the front perimeter, which is like Skyline Drive, I really like the fact that there's a lot of green here. I also wanted to consider maybe adding an eastern redbud, because it's a spring blooming plant, so it's one of the first things that bloom when spring comes. And it also does attract bees and a lot of birds. So I'm getting hot, and I'm like, I think this is a good time to just pause this for a second, because I want to go outside and just take the walk along, so you guys can see some of the areas that I picked out.
Okay. All right.